Hi, this is Naveen Bond. I'm part of the chief data office within my organization currently, and it's almost 21 years I'm into IT, and half of my experience, or more than half of it, is on the data management side of things. I was involved on the infra side, wherein we manage the cybersecurity part of it, how data should be sourced, how data should be transported through the system from one system to another, and how data would be actually consumed, both from the infra side, both from the management of infra side, from a development perspective, as well as the policy and governance part of it, which is the actual data management, which includes the data architecture, data quality, data monitoring, implementing the right controls, and subsequently the very important chunk, which is the data governance and internal and external audits around it. While most of the experience is around data management, one of the important things which has evolved over the time is how the organization aligns to the regulatory and compliance organization alignment to the global regulatory and compliance, which wherein there are multiple facets of it. One of it is the organization aligning to regulators, like the banks aligning to the local and the global regulators, the automobile sector, the banks, but one of the important thing is how the organization, if at all it is storing, processing, receiving data into both internal, external, consuming, generating every sort of activity in and around data, how they are ensuring their alignment with the global regulator, the privacy side of things, which has evolved over the time, how data should be consumed, how data should be processed, how data should transit. So all of these things evolving over the time. One of the question which is pretty much obvious in the data management world is how data should be strategized, and how data should be from a policy perspective, how that aligns to the regulator like GDPR, right? Now this approach of the world which I am in right now, which is data management and aligning it to GDPR, was one of the core reason which is kind of so far result into a robust data management framework, right, which aligns to all the regulator, which includes the GDPR as well. Now, the world which we are in pretty much aligns to the existing data management framework, which aligns to the DMBOK or the DAMA, right? So we have an existing framework which is around the enterprise data management, but now aligning it to the GDPR, so that we are aligned well to the regulator for protecting personal data. So that's where this role of the CDPO, right, and the enterprise, aligning it to the enterprise data management, right, that has evolved over the time. So how these two parallel tracks intersect, right, where there are overlaps, where there are handshakes. So one of the important thing is, let's talk about the data governance for a while. Now, in the data management, well, when we say data governance, is primarily around, do we have the right source? Are we getting the data from the right authorized golden source? Are we processing it in the right way, right? And do we have actually the owners identified? And similar is the expectation from the GDPR, which talks about the accountability, right? So we are well aligned here on this particular point. Similar is the case of data quality, right? In the data management world, we talk about the completeness, correctness of the data, right? And on the GDPR side, it is pretty much around the validation, right? When we talk about validation, the correct process, right? Are we getting the personal data, let's say for a while, from the right source? Is this really correct, right? So those sort of things. Data security, when we talk about the data management, we talk about the data security. Are we storing, processing again in the right way? Do we have the right controls? Like if you talk about the infrastructure, if you have defined an infrastructure for, let's say, just to take an example of politically exposed people, right? Then if we are processing those personal identities within our system, are they masked, right? Do we have a hashing of all the data done appropriately and the control implemented so that they are not unmasked at the transit level, right? While the source owning the data, the processing pretty much is masked, the consumer consuming it for the relevant field of that data, but not everything which is exposed to them. So such controls needs to be there. So the data security part of it, which aligns to the data management, but at the same time it aligns to the GDPR as well. So we have a handshake here in this critical. This is metadata management, and similarly is the case of the transparency around how we are managing our world. So in data management, we manage the data, the metadata of data, right? And similar is the expectation how we are in the GDPR side, we are expecting the, let's say for a while, the number of records being processed. So we have a particular field which captures that, and we are storing that as a metadata in our system. So again, in this particular case, we have a linkage. The data architecture now, this is one of the core and very important aspect of data management as well as GDPR. Now GDPR talks about storing only the limited or the relevant field which are required for processing, while this pretty much overlaps with the data management principle of data architecture, wherein we define the system, right, and enforce why we need that data. Are we getting it from right source? Do we have proper controls in place? We are defining the system as to how long we will retain the data, how we are going to process the data, right? Are we processing the right subset within the data, not everything which is required? So those are all limitations, whether we have the right delivery agreements in place, whether we are processing it in the right way through the right infra, right? And we are retaining and maintaining it in the appropriate regulatory aligned way. So that way, data architecture in the data management ensures the purpose limitation, the GDPR, right? So again, in this particular case, we are also right. So GDPR per se is not a regulatory specific exercise. I must say, in our world, in data management, this is somewhat, I must say, this is the highest level of care or the highest level of maturity which is expected and should be and must rather be part of the enterprise data strategy, which includes data management. And it's something every organization should target towards, while they, in a realistic world, they evolve over the time, right? So this is something not which we can expect at day one, but this is something every organization should target towards, right? In case they are storing and processing the privacy data. Now, while this is somewhat a world which is currently I am involved in, and how this GDPR or the data privacy and the CDPO role overlaps with the enterprise data strategy, and how both can leverage each other capability in achieving the enterprise data strategy. The other side of things is how this particular CDPO role helps in achieving the right alignment, right, within leveraging the capabilities in and around, right, existing in the organization. So one of the important aspect is how enterprise data policy aligns with the GDPR or the data privacy. So in case the organization is processing any data, the view should be the policy side of things, which is how organization data policy is managed and maintained. They should evolve and include the GDPR principles. Similar is the case is with the enterprise risk, how risks are being managed, right? So when we talk about the impact assessment for any projects, let's say for a while we are processing a personal data, right? That's agentic solution or a Gen AI solution, whatever we call it, or existing projects which are consuming any sort of personal data, right? We should always ensure that there is a DPIA which should be done, and there be a there is a risk assessment done based on that, and that risk is aligned to the enterprise risk, right? In case that project or the consumption of that private data translates into any sort of risk, that should be visible and transparent at the enterprise level, right? And that should be captured on the risk management portal. Similar is the case with the vendor oversight. If we have any sort of agreement upstream or downstream with any vendor providing us the data, or we being responsible of sharing that data to any downstream, it is important we have the right contractual agreement with this upstream and the downstream as to how we are receiving data and how we are processing that data within our world, and how we are subsequently sending it to downstream. Now, processing the data within our world lies within our responsibility, so that aligns well with the policy integration, how we manage the GDPR principle, aligning it with the enterprise data management, that aligns well there. But if the upstream is an external system and similar as downstream is an external, we should manage that through proper contracts. Data ethics now. Another aspect of CDPO aligning with the enterprise strategy is data ethics. Now, the ethical way is, unless this is being authorized by the source, authorized by the person, unless it's authorized, unauthorized by the person, in other words, then how organization is processing that data based on the consent provided, right? Are we using or misusing the data, right? These are the questions which needs to be answered, and that should be the data ethics side of things. As an organization, as part of enterprise data strategy, we shouldn't be processing data unless it is authorized, unless we have the consent with us. How that consent would be managed and maintained, that is something we should look at the data consent record management, which should be stored somewhere. Unless that is available, we shouldn't be processing. So that is the ethical side of things. The important thing is privacy by design. Now, privacy by design and default, this is something is still evolving. The important aspect of it is how infrastructure and the process and the controls within those processes, how they are ensuring that data is, if at all, let's say, again, similar example, a consent is provided, then how we are getting that data from the upstream, how we are processing that data within our platforms, and in case we are processing those data in the platforms, then only the necessary data which is required for processing that be maintained and managed. Rest of the data shouldn't be considered, right, or should be masked or some way be controlled beyond processing. We have the right controls, data controls in place, which includes the rules, which includes how the process manages the data. If there are any transformation which is happening at the data, that also needs to be managed via process and via the platforms. The important thing is, if at all it is consumed by any consumer for any process or any sort of consumption, that also should be managed as part of the GDPR principle and the privacy by design approach, right? So that way, if at all we are processing the private data, we should be having a custom. We should be ethically maintaining and managing those, processing and response back to processing, consumption, and response back to consumer or to the wider world, how we are using it, right? That should be open and transparent. We should have a proper risk management, and we have the important thing, very important thing is we are aligned to the enterprise strategy. So that way, I must say, a CDPO integrating with the data management office as part of the enterprise data strategy, both world has an overlap, and this particular role evolving for the data for managing the private data, it ensures we are compliant, right, and ensure there are no compromises done throughout the process, front to back, in misusing or improper usage of the data, right? Another aspect of it is how GDPR act as a catalyst for digital transformation. So, as highlighted earlier, once GDPR is not considered as a overhead, it should be considered as part of our regulatory and compliance obligations. Once it is integrated, embedded in the enterprise data strategy, then we would be having one trust in the data what we are sourcing, right? This trust is not only within the organization. With this trust we can share it back with the producer, consumer, or the people's data which we are using. We can ensure we are using your data in the right way. The quality side of things, integrating it with the data strategy, the data quality stuff ensures right controls, right rules are in place to ensure the quality is maintained, right? Again, privacy by design, which includes the processes, the development, the infrastructure, and the control side of things, which ensures the private data is maintained, managed, and processed well. So that is something a GDPR or CDPO can align well with the digital transformation. So all in all, what is we can achieve through this role, CDPO? So one, it fulfills the GDPR requirement, right, and aligns well to the enterprise data management roadmap. We be having a robust privacy governance process, which includes building some dashboards, providing reports how we are progressing on this side, and can share it across transparently to the wider stakeholders, right? Inclusive the people whose data we are using. We can stay transparent there. In our development and management process, we can embed this practices, right, and ensure they are managed well, which includes CI/CD pipelines. And another aspect is, within the best practices is, have a culture of accountability. If anything goes wrong, where the data is coming from, do we have the lineage of it, who is the consumer, right? All things being captured and managed well. If we have clarity on that, then that be supported by the right accountable person. If anything goes wrong, we be aware of whom we need to reach out, right? So this way, the CDPO as a role integrates with the enterprise data strategy, which includes one of the core aspect of data management, which is currently I am leading within my organization at the enterprise level. And similar is the case of how CDPO can help in the digital transformation, the enterprise digital transformation, and help in aligning the organization with the regulatory and compliance. So concluding, these two, the GDPR and the data management, both aligns to the enterprise data strategy, I must say, and they shouldn't be looked as two different things. They are still, there are still a bit of overlaps. There are still roles and responsibilities, the RASI and overlap between the two tracks, and both are important to the organization and help in achieving a sustainable digital transformation. Through both the practices help achieving the regulatory obligation, both from a data management side of things and the data privacy side of things, which aligns to the GDPR principles. So they help in achieving the regulatory obligations. And the questions like, one of the important question which everyone is concerned about is, am I using the personal data, right? Is organization managing that personal data in the right way? Yes, through these two processes, and primarily the CDPO role being primarily responsible for managing the data privacy. This led to the data trust, right, and ethical data usage within the organization. So the way data strategy should be, the way the enterprise data strategy should be looked in from these two parallel tracks, or call it the core pillars, for the enterprise organization. It should help in moving on to the next, the next evolution, which is pretty much happening right now, which is the AI, the Gen AI, the Gen AI world. There are lots and lots of projects which are coming in, and that which requires the private data to be used, which requires people to be notified how what's happening in and around them. So projects like agentic AI and the Gen AI projects. So this next level of activity, which enterprise, which is pretty much aligned to the enterprise journey within any organization, the next level of projects, I must say, they be achieved. The organization would be able to achieve it in the right way only when these two pillars, enterprise data management and the managed through the DMO, data management office, chief data management officer, and the chief, the CDPO, data production officer. So these two are the core pillars and the core roles for achieving that enterprise strategy and the enterprise alignment with the next gen projects. So that's pretty much the view I had in understanding and evolving how this role can help in aligning to my current world, and how this role will help in achieving the enterprise strategy, data strategy. That's pretty much I had. Thanks for having me, being part of this journey, training journey. This was pretty interesting, and I really strongly see this helping me in evolving myself and the roles and responsibilities I be performing, knowing this side of things, that CDPO side of things. Thanks. Thank you. Bye.